This is The Right Approach. I'm JW Judge, and with me is my co-host, Barbara Hinsky. This is a podcast for writers to learn more about the craft and business of writing as we explore a new topic every week. Our guest today is Tammy Grace. She is the USA Today best-selling author of women's fiction, family sagas, mysteries, Christmas stories, and there are like a gazillion books under her name when you go check her out. She is with us today to talk about writing connected series and rapid release. So Tammy, welcome to The Right Approach.
Well, thanks for having me, JW. I'm happy to be here with you and Barbara.
So I know that,
Can I just jump in? And
yes.
I am like Tammy's biggest fans. I love everything she writes. It's always full of heart. It's full of dogs, which I love dogs, but she is really an exceptionally gifted storyteller. So I'm just going to leave it at that.
Well, I definitely saw the dogs. And as the owner of a golden retriever who's getting old and has that old golden retriever face.
Yeah.
We're big fans of dogs around here.
You've got a sugar face.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And she's got a limp. She's just getting along right now.
Yeah. They're the best.
She is. And I will say, this is going to turn into a dog podcast before long. We have an 8-year-old and a 5-year-old. And so she is older than both of them. And you're never sure how, a dog, like we got a golden retriever for a reason, but you just don't know how they're going to be around kids. And especially when the kids were little and crawling around and they would just kind of fall all over her. And then, when they're learning to walk and, it's just total chaos. And she was the best dog. And she's never been much of like a cuddler or anything like that. But she also never got troubled over any of the chaos around her.
Yeah, they seem to gravitate towards kids, I think. They tend to protect them and, be their little friend, which is really nice.
Yeah, they know.
Yeah, the only time anything untoward even happened was when our 5-year-old now was learning to crawl. She crawled over to Darby and grabbed a tuft of hair in a very sensitive area. Oh. And Darby whirled around on her, didn't snap, didn't do anything aggressive, just whirled on her because it was surprising. And then immediately came over to me and put her head in my lap. Like, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to. Like, you're good.
They're gentle souls. Yes.
Yeah.
They are.
And that dog used to, when she was younger, would wrestle with me. And, she'll clamp down on my arm hard enough to leave marks, but never to break skin because she knew that we could do that. And so the kids have always tried to get her to wrestle and to play rough with them. She will not do it.
Oh, that's sweet.
That's good. Good girl.
Yes.
Yeah. Good dog. All right. Let's talk about your writing process. Let's start there. That enables you to be prolific and write a whole bunch of books without burning out.
Well, I love to write. It's an escape for me. So especially during the COVID era, I just found myself writing more and more and more. It was a nice place to be, a happy place to be. And so I write books that I would like to read. So I read to escape and I write to escape. And I hope I create little worlds for people to escape into. But I treat it like a job. I mean, I write every day. I've always been very focused, driven, goal-oriented, hard work, whatever I've done. So to me, it's just like that. It's just a job you go to. I have a set time frame that I like to write. I tend to write early in the morning. I'm better early in the morning, and I tend to do more marketing and business related stuff later in the afternoon when I'm a little tired, because that's a little more rote to me. And being creative, I think I need to be at my best. So I just write every day, put a lot of time in, and I don't do other things sometimes because I'm writing. So I tend to really focus on it and not have a big life outside. It's just me and my little office and my dog.
So do
So
you
let me
have,
ask you,
oh,
do
go ahead,
you
Barb.
write on the, do you write on the weekend too? Do you write 7 days a week?
I tend to, yeah. I don't probably produce as much on the weekend, but I
Yeah.
do tend to. Now, right now, so this year I've written 10 books in 1 year, and I'm tired. So I am taking a little bit of a break right now. We have some travel plans and things we're doing. So I'm taking a little bit of time off, but I can honestly say I've written every day.
Wow.
So do you have a lot of particular amount of time you said to writing? Is there a word count you're in striving toward each day, or are there particular goals on a daily basis?
Yeah, I try to write somewhere around 3,000 words a day, some 2,500, 3,000. But if I'm on a roll, I'll just keep going. It's not like I get to a point and I just stop. If I'm feeling really good and I'm in the flow, you know how you guys will understand, but when you're in the middle of it, it's not like I'm just gonna put the next window, please sign out and leave. I'm gonna keep
Yeah.
going.
That's funny. Well, so, and when you're done with that, I mean, that's a very productive day for sure. If you get 3,000 words in, what's your editing process like?
So I know you're not supposed to, everybody tells you not to, but I tend to edit a bit as I write. Not crazily, but I do. Sometimes I go back and reread what I wrote the day before just to kind of get back in the groove of what I'm doing, or just a chapter that I wrote before. So I've worked with several editors. A lot of them have retired. So I've had to find new editors, and things like that, which is always super not fun. But and most of them all tell me that my documents are really clean when they get them. So it tends to work for me. I mean, everybody has it, some people just write and it's all whatever, and then they spend a lot of time editing. I don't spend a lot of time self-editing when I'm done, because I've kind of done that along the way. But then I send it I have a trusted first reader that I use, and then I read it and go through it, and then I send it to an editor, and then I have several beta readers that read it for me, and then we proof it after that. So that's the basic process.
So while your book is out with all those other folks, you're carrying on
I'm
writing the
writing the
next
next
thing.
book. Right.
Yeah.
How if I looked correctly, you have several ongoing series simultaneously. Is that right? How do you decide? Because I know everybody kind of approaches this differently. What you're going to write into next?
Yeah, that's a tough one. So this year I took a different approach, because normally what I've been doing is I'll release a book in each of the series, maybe, a book a year or something like that. This year I bit off a big project and decided to do a whole series of 6 books in 1 year. And my goal was to release one each month. So just like back to back, which I started in April, and started releasing, and I'll wrap it up in October with my last one is coming out. So I almost met the goal. I skipped September, kind of on purpose, kind of not, but anyway, that was the first time I decided to bite off a whole series in one swoop. And I don't know that I would do it again. It's a lot of pressure. It's a lot of internal pressure, to get to meet all of those goals. And then I had an editor who had to stop in the middle of that series, and she had a problem, so I had to go to a secondary editor. So that throws a loop, when you have a plan and it's going to go like a certain timeline, that throws a real loop in it. So I don't know that I would do that again, but I know readers really like to be able to binge on it. And I have noticed an uptick, in that in the sales of that series. And I think that's why, because it comes out so quickly that people can just jump on it. And some readers don't like to jump into a series until it's complete. I think maybe they've been burned that the author stops the series or whatever reason. But then I have like my mystery series. I just plan to write it forever because it's each story is a standalone mystery. So it's not like it's this big continuing arc of a lot of things. There's some character things that happen in each story with the main character that you learn a little bit more about him, but they're more self-contained. So I plan to write that forever until I quit writing because I really love them. So there's really no end. It's not like you can say, oh, it's complete, because to me it's just going to go forever. And then my first series that I wrote is called Hometown Harbor, and it's a women's fiction, and that one is really popular with readers. So I had no plans to go beyond like 5 stories, I think is what my plan was. And then readers really like it. So they keep saying, when are you going to write another one? And so then I'll find myself, I'll think of a story and I'm like, oh yeah, I could do that, because I don't just want to write the same story. There are great authors that I've read for my whole life. And, when I look back on them, I'm like, boy, it's almost the same story again and again and again and again. And I just get, hooked on it as a reader. So I understand that. But as a writer, it's really boring to write the same story over and over and over. So I really like characters, and I like to find a new twist on a character, and then I'll insert it in that series. But like the Hometown series, I thought it was done, but I still get emails from readers and they're like, oh, we'd love another story in that. And so what I did in this current series, which I think readers have commented that they liked, is I brought characters from that old series into this new series and vice versa. So that will give me, a little way to spin off some more, maybe new readers that haven't discovered that series, and bring them in.
I think that's brilliant. And you haven't, modestly, of course, because that's who you are, you haven't mentioned that it's your Lavender Valley series, this new one that you rapid released. And it is fabulous. Your reviews are stellar. And I can tell by your Amazon rankings that you are crushing it.
Yeah,
So
it's taken off. So, and I think it's a rapid release, which I kind of resisted for a while because I saw authors doing that and I thought, oh my gosh, how do you do that? Well, then when I had so much free time to write, I was like, okay, might as well try it and, see what happens. But it does put a lot of pressure on you. And if you have any chink in your team that you're working with, if they have something go wrong, it's like, ooh, you really got to scramble.
Yeah,
So
I think I don't want to try it if I had them all done and then put them up. But boy, that's a daunting process to write 5 or 6 novels.
Right. And then you have nothing to come out during that time while you're writing that. So I had banked up a couple, but the others I was writing, and I'm one of those people, I do not like to put up a pre-order until I am pretty much done with the book, because I just believe you can get shish kebabbed by that. And so I try really hard not to put up a pre-order. If I'm almost done with a book, I don't struggle with it, but I don't like to put one up if I'm just hoping I'll be done.
Right.
So for the series that you released entirely this year, what work did you put in advance before you started writing, knowing what your plan was?
Well, I put a lot of thought into, I'm a plotter. I tend to be more of a plotter. I'm not a crazy plotter, but I plan everything out. So I had all the characters done. I had them all my character. I do pretty extensive work on characters. So I had all of that mapped out. I knew where all the stories, how each story was going to go. I did all of my blurbs ahead of time, all of my like ad copy. I was just trying to get everything done, did all my graphics, did all my covers, got all of it lined up and ready to go. And then I wrote probably 3 of them before I even put up the first one, because I wanted to have those in the bank And I thought, even if I can't release them all, my goal was to release them all. But I thought if I can get, 3 of them out and then just keep that momentum going, I could get it done. So I did put some time into really thinking about the market, the women's fiction market, and what people liked. And so this one, it's called Sisters of the Heart. And it's about foster sisters that grew up with the same foster mom, but at different times. So they never met. And that was the whole premise. I thought, what would happen if foster sisters had never met growing up, but they were brought together as adults? How would that work? What kind of a little family would that make? And I write a lot about families that are not necessarily traditional families. So that was the premise for that. And I spent a lot of time researching. It's set in Southern Oregon, which I like that area, and set it on a lavender farm. So, if you read about what readers like, I think there's an author that has a book about butter, and you add as much butter as you can. So I really put some time into coming up with lists of things that are butter, and what I could add into each of these books, to make them irresistible. Basically, that was my goal.
I think you achieved that.
I was on Instagram just scrolling reels the other day and came across a video of lavender being harvested. It was really cool. I watched it numerous times just because watching that process was amazing.
It's kind of a mesmerizing, place. And it's I tell the people, a lot of my readers, I'll tell them when I'm talking in my group and stuff, it's like when I'm writing these books, I feel like I'm in the lavender farm. It's almost like you can smell that smell, and you just see that view and stuff, and it's an incredible escape. So I think it's it gives people that little sense of family, that little sense of escape. There's a little mystery in some of them. One of the sisters is an deputy chief of investigations in a big police department. So she's got a little mystery. One of the others has a little mystery. So there's a little bit of mystery. There's a tiny bit of, romantic element. It's not a romance, though. It's just women's fiction about their entire life, but it's more about all of their journeys and what brought them back, what made them able to come back to Lavender Valley. I mean, I'm thinking, 5 adult women, how many could just pick up and move back to this little farm that they knew so long ago? What would make them want to do that? So that's a lot of their story.
When you're writing and you're having all of these sensory memories, what do you do to make sure that you're putting that on the page so that the reader can have those same experiences?
I do a lot with making sure I include, the 5 senses, and so I do a lot with food. I do a lot with scents, and trying to just describe that setting. I think a lot of times setting becomes a whole part of what I write. There's a real affinity for that setting. That happened in my hometown harbor books. A lot of people, they're set in the San Juan Islands off Washington, and I'll have people that will write and say, "Oh my gosh, I went on a trip there because of that book," or I used to live there, and it's exactly like, what you say it's like. And so that makes you feel very happy as an author to get that feedback that you've actually accomplished what you've set out to do. So I think using those sensory things, all the things that you would touch and feel and smell and see are super important to the reader, because they feel immersed in that world. You want them in that world. You don't want them leaving that world. You want them right there with you on that trip.
And you are a master at that. I don't want to let this segment end without you talking about connected series. You and I write in 2 connected series.
Right.
And I know you've done others, and you kind of manage them, which is an incredible amount of work, I think, but you do a great job, and it's fun to write with you. In fact, you and I are writing 2 that are really connected in a new series coming out in 2025. We're going to talk about that. So tell me about connected series and why you got on that bandwagon?
You know, I went to NINC at a conference in Florida. I think it was 2019. And I was talking to an author and we were talking about that. And she was telling me about her experience writing a connected series. And I thought, oh, that would be sort of fun because much of my life is alone, with my dog who always agrees with me. But, writing with other authors is kind of fun because you get the input from other people and you get to brainstorm ideas. And I'm a big believer in my day job. I was a big believer in building a team with, diverse ideas. And that's how you get the best outcome. So I thought, oh, that's a great opportunity to create a shared world where you can have other people help you create that world and come up with ideas, and the benefit of expanding your audience. If you've got 5 or 6 authors and everybody has their own audience, and maybe my readers have never read, Barb's books, but it's a great way to get that cross promotion just kind of naturally with somebody with a lot of other readers. And so I thought, well, that would be kind of a fun thing to try. So at that conference, I knew an author I had met before, and then I got introduced to a couple others, and we were talking, and we had dinner one night, and we just came up with this world and this idea that we wanted to do. And so that was my first experience with it. And in my old life, before I started writing, I did a lot of project management and ran a lot of large, big projects and construction projects and people projects and HR projects and things like that. So I have a affinity to organizing that type of thing. So I'll usually volunteer to do a big piece of it, but and you give up some control. If you are totally independent and you always want things your way, you're probably not going to like doing this. But if you're willing to give up a little bit of that control and go along with, everybody working together to elevate that series, I think it's a win-win. And I like the connected world where you all write your own book better than like an anthology. I've done those too, which are easy because, you just write your book and it gets slapped into a collection with a theme, and that's pretty good. But I don't see the huge rise in new readers doing that as opposed to an actual connected series. But it takes more work because you've actually got to work at connecting those characters, maybe connecting events, connecting a setting, connecting a time period, where maybe it's the same time, which is a ton of work. But it's a lot more work, but I think the payoff is better.
I think, was The Wishing Tree your first one, the one that I was part of, or was that different?
Soul Sisters at Cedar Mountain Lodge was the first
yeah,
one.
of course.
And it's a Christmas theme with foster sisters again. But that was really very popular with readers. Holidays tend to be popular anyway. And so I'm writing another one in that series this year. I mean, that's how long that's been going on. So it just, you can just keep going as long, I'll write as long as people are willing to keep reading them. So that's fun. But The Wishing Tree, that's another really popular, readers love that. And it's set in a world that, we all created, and then everybody has, their own little characters. But I think we did a lot of work on making sure characters appeared in other books. It's not just your character. I've done another series where people didn't want to do that much work, to overlap as much. And so it's less connected and it doesn't sell as well. And so I think it's a good lesson in that you really have to, put in the work ahead of time to connect those characters. And not that it's a great series too. And it's an opportunity to lead readers, within your story. You can bring in your other books, other characters, and sprinkle them in there and get them excited about those characters and lead them to another series.
So tell me about, go ahead, Barb.
I was just going to say, I was stunned in The Wishing Tree, which is set in a mythical town in Connecticut. And of course, fall is the real time of year there. And it's such a charming town. Our reviews all say we'd like to live there. And why don't you all do a retreat there? And we actually talked about it, a readers retreat, but boy, that's a lot to
Oh, yeah.
wrangle because we've
A
got
lot of
international
work.
offers as well. So we haven't done that yet, but who knows, maybe we will.
Yeah, that would be
But that
fun.
was awfully gratifying. And we just had a sale on it. And at least I know my sales skyrocketed. I'm sure yours did too. It's gratifying.
Yeah, and I love writing that series. You know, I think I tend to like to write what I like to read. So if I love that
Yes.
little town. It reminds me of Stars Hollow and the Gilmore Girls. You know, it just reminds me of that type of a, you know, addiction to that kind of a place.
So
That's what it is. Yeah.
I have two questions that I don't want to forget either one. You just mentioned having a sale on this. So when you have a sale with multiple authors that a work that already exists and you want to push it, what kind of work are y'all doing to get that in front of new readers?
Well, in front of new readers, what we've done to date is we all agree, you know, we get in contact with each other because it doesn't work for one person to have a sale. Usually you want to have the whole group having a sale. So like Wishing Tree, we did a 99-cent weekend sale, like Friday, Saturday, Sunday, limited time. Grab these books for 99 cents. And there are more books in the series. So it's not the entire, I think there's 14 in the series. And I think we put the first 7 on sale. So, you know, we use the same old tactics that you would use when you have a sale on a book. It's the newsletter, ads, you know, Facebook ads or Amazon ads, or even a newsletter ad, like a book bargain ad or whatever. And I don't think we've come up with anything, you know, crazy new about that. Barb and I are both in a large reader group. And so we do use that. There's about 16,000 readers in that group that are fairly engaged. And so
Yeah.
when we
Facebook
have
group.
yeah, when we have anything like that, we will share it, you know, with those readers. But I don't have any secret sauce for for, you know, finding new readers. I mean, you're finding new readers all the time. So everybody's lists are growing and their following is growing and things like that. So you're going to get some new readers, but no real magic that I've found on that yet. So if you have some, JW, you let me know and I'll sprinkle some on.
The next thing I was going to ask stays with the same series that y'all have written in. Tell me about the collaboration that goes into creating this fictional setting, characters that are overlapping, stories that are occurring in the same world, so that there is a synchronicity among all of the different books and you don't get things out of sorts.
It's a lot of work. And that's what I'm saying. If you do not want to put in work and you do not want to give up some control, this is not for you. But we put in a lot of work, worked with some shared documents basically to, you know, solidify the character that is yours and what they're doing in that book. And then the setting, the places, the events, we came up with, usually we find like a real town and use that as a blueprint for a fictional town and embellish it, of course, but at least that way you can find landmarks and markers and, you know, everybody agrees on where it is. So somebody isn't, you know, 100 miles from the capital and somebody else is 500 miles from the capital. You know, you kind of solidify where you're going to be. So we did a lot of that work. We had one of the authors volunteer to read all the stories and sprinkle in. She just wrote back with tracked changes on your document to sprinkle in where you could put more things about other characters. And I think it's really key that you do add in those other characters. You know, you don't have to add in every single character doing a lot of big things, but you know, they just see them in the town or interact with them in the town, and it gives a sense of community, you know, to that whole series. And for the Cedar Mountain Lodge one we did, we made the silly mistake of doing it the first time, and it's all during the exact same time period, told from different viewpoints. Well, that means you really have to be careful on weather, on what people are doing at each time of the day. You know, you can't have somebody having breakfast here and breakfast there. I mean, you know, it's got to be very, very well done. And so we had this massive Excel spreadsheet that took up my whole wall in my office of who's here and who's there and who, you know, and so I would advise against trying to do it exact time frame with the, you know, read point of view type of thing. But readers loved it. I will say that, you know, they liked that. It was very, very connected. So they liked that aspect of it, but it's a bit of work to get that all done. And then if you have an author who isn't really that interested in doing that and just kind of does their own thing, it's not great. So you have to all kind of be committed to doing that work.
And the other thing you have to make sure is that none of the authors are last minute kind of people. You need people who can do things, hit the mark ahead of time. So there's enough time for people to put things in. I found putting in these sort of drive-by references to the yarn shop or the muffet shop or whatever. You could find in one of the books, somebody was talking about a certain thing at the restaurant. I don't remember what it was, but then my character had it and raved about it. So the characters didn't have to interact and the timing wasn't so exact, but yet everybody knew what was going on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's important.
Yeah, there's ways to do it, almost like taking the other characters and putting them as extras with non-speaking roles, but you know, waved at Neva across the square. That kind of thing feels very authentic, but is manageable because it does quickly get unmanageable.
Yeah, it does. So, but I know I've worked with a couple authors and they don't really have the time, I think, and that's the whole thing is you've got to,
yes,
if you don't have the time to dedicate to it and you're one of those people that likes to write a book at the very last minute, it is not going to work. And like the project Barb and I are working on for next year or the year after that even, we just decided at the beginning that all the manuscripts have to be done at the same time because that's the only real way you can ensure everybody's done and ready to roll, and things can be added in if necessary, because the folks that want to wait and write at the end, it's not the best fit, you know, and that's their thing. That's great that they can do that, but it just doesn't work when you're in a team.
And I think, didn't we also on the Wishing Tree, we tried to use the same line editor with the hope that that person reading all of them would be another set of eyes to say,
right,
you know, Tom died in book 2, so he can't have a speaking part in book 6,
right.
kind of
He's
thing.
he's already gone. Yeah.
He's already gone. I mean, that's an extreme example. And I don't know, if it really worked too well for us with that same editor. I don't know if we're doing that again in our current project, but
we're not, only because it elongates the process so long, because they've got to have it for however many, you know, if you've got 8 authors and they need a couple weeks each, it's like you've got a 4-month process there.
Yeah.
No, we did do that. I think it works best if an author will actually read them all for us, if one of the authors reads it, because they get a real sense, and it doesn't have to be like an editorial type review. It just has to be, oh, you could put in Martha here and you can put in Nancy there, whatever.
Yes. Yeah.
Is there any way to ensure there's not? Is there any way to ensure that everybody carries their water, or that you don't get involved? You know, when you have a group of people with somebody who's not carrying their end of things.
Yeah, and we've been pretty lucky, really, in that regard. But you know, you learn about you learn always from whatever project you're on. You know, I'm a big believer in continuous improvement. So you learn at the end and you assess and you go, okay, this is what I would do different to make sure that doesn't happen again. Or maybe I won't invite that person to be in another group because it just, you know, that their way of working doesn't mesh with with what we're doing. So I think, you always learn, but I think there are always ones that will carry more and do more and get more done. And then there are others who won't. And sometimes things happen in your life and you're not able to, and that's the way it goes. So not a big judgment. I think at the outset, we try to recruit who will be responsible for each area and give a person that responsibility. But I always go in wide, my eyes wide open, that if they're not going to do it, I'll probably have to jump in and do it, or somebody else will.
This has been really enlightening and I think instructive for people who are interested in doing this sort of thing, and a good place to wrap up the conversation. But before we go, I want to make sure people know where they can find you and your work and follow you if there's any particular social media you're active on. So if you could share that with us.
Sure. I've got a website at www.tammylgrace.com, and all my books are there. All my social contacts are there. I'm mostly on Facebook. I interact there quite regularly, and all my books are on Amazon. Several of them are in Kindle Unlimited, and a few are not. But that's the best place to find me. Just use my middle initial, because when I started writing, I found there was some other Tammy Grace, so I used my middle initial to distinguish myself.
All right. Well, thank you so much for sharing with us today and for taking the time to be with us. I really appreciate it.
I appreciate it. Thanks for having me, JW. Thanks, Barb.
Thank you.